the absolute best way to defeat a toxic person. Follow their rules exactly. Today, we are looking at 3 epic stories of malicious compliance. Stories where entitled clients, fake professionals, and arrogant millionaires demanded things their way and got exactly what they asked for, completely destroying themselves in the process. Let's dive in.
I run a small independent fitness consultancy business. I've built my reputation on word of mouth, meaning I usually work with clients in their 30s and 40s who are serious about their health. But recently, I had a run-in with a client who genuinely made my blood boil. Let's call her Gigi. She was in her mid-20s, boasted a pretty decent follower count online, and seemed to be a local influencer. She sent me a DM saying she was looking to tighten up her physique for a summer swimwear shoot. I thought, why not? Her network could bring in some good business. I was so wrong. During our initial consultation, I laid out my pricing. I charge a very reasonable $50 for a custom meal and workout plan. She read the message, ignored the price, and replied with the classic influencer line, "I was wondering whether you'd be interested in getting yourself some exposure instead of payment." I'll admit, for a split second, I considered it. But after talking to some friends, I snapped out of it. I firmly told her my price is non-negotiable. She paid it, but clearly held a grudge. I built her a customized plan focused on a light, sustainable calorie deficit. I explicitly warned her that healthy weight loss isn't an overnight magic trick. She agreed, and I thought we were on the same page. Exactly 1 week later, I woke up at 5 a.m. to my phone buzzing aggressively. It was an Instagram audio call from Gigi. I didn't even know you could call people on Instagram. Half asleep, I answered, only to have my eardrums blasted. "You're a fucking scammer! You think this is some kind of joke?" I was completely dazed. I weakly asked what was going on. "I just weighed in after a week on your bullshit plan. I'm up half a fucking pound." I tried to calm her down. I explained that weight loss isn't a linear process. Water weight, time of day, and even what clothes you are wearing can offset a scale by half a pound. But she wasn't having it. Judging by her slurred words and the time of the morning, she was comfortably 3 or 4 margaritas deep, which definitely wasn't in her diet plan. She screamed, "I've got a swimwear collaboration this week. Do you know how screwed I am? I followed your plan to the fucking letter." An hour later, she messaged me her final unhinged ultimatum. "Refund me immediately and post a public statement on your page admitting your plan doesn't work and that I was right to call you out. Do it by noon, or I start tagging every local gym and brand you've ever worked with." I sat with that threat for a minute. Then, a brilliant idea came to mind. I refunded her $50 within the hour, and I posted exactly what she asked for, word for word, on my public business page. Public statement as requested by Gigi. I refunded the client in full. My standard plan prioritizes sustainable, moderate deficits rather than dramatic 1-week scale drops. The client reported following the plan to the letter and still gained 0.5 pounds in 7 days. Therefore, by the client's own stated metric and timeline, the plan did not produce the immediate results she required for her swimwear shoot. She was correct to call this out. We live in a small, tight-knit city. By lunchtime, my post had been screenshotted and circulated in every local fitness group. People started flocking to her page, asking obvious, mocking questions in her comments. She tried to walk it back, claiming I twisted her words, but the damage was done. She deleted her rant and went completely quiet. Meanwhile, my business page picked up a steady stream of new clients who specifically reached out because they wanted the boring, sustainable version of fitness. I never heard from Gigi again. I guess she finally got that exposure she wanted.
You know, there is nothing quite like watching an influencer realize that the real world doesn't run on Instagram likes. But if you thought Gigi was entitled, just wait until you meet our next villain. This one involves the entertainment industry, a massive ego, and a resume that is quite literally too honest for its own good.
I used to know a woman who claimed she was an actress. Let's call her Helen. In the time that I knew her, her story constantly changed. She bragged about having all this elite industry experience, yet she didn't seem to know even the basic fundamentals of how a movie set actually worked. Helen was the kind of person who used people as stepping stones and discarded them like trash the second they were no longer useful. On top of being a self-centered blowhard, she was incredibly cheap. Her headshots were so out of date, and she refused to pay a real photographer for new ones. Instead, she submitted overly edited camera phone selfies with so many filters she looked like a plastic Bratz doll. Shortly before I finally cut contact with her, she came to me with a demand. Not a request, a demand. She wanted me to beautify her resume and make it look more professional. Translation? She wanted me to exaggerate her skills, fix her horrible grammar, and outright lie to make her false claims look believable. And of course, she expected me to do this completely for free. I was furious. So I maliciously complied. I decided to test a theory. I knew Helen was incredibly lazy and arrogant. Deep down, I just knew she wouldn't even bother to read the resume before sending it out. So I opened her document, went straight to the Special Skills section, and proudly added a few new talents. I wrote, Master of the Dunning-Kruger effect, expert at gaslighting, and embodies a supercilious manner. For those who don't know, the Dunning-Kruger effect is a psychological rule where people with low ability overestimate their own intelligence. Gaslighting is psychological manipulation, and supercilious means acting as though you are superior to everyone else. It was the most accurate resume ever written. I emailed it back to her. True to form, Helen never even said thank you. A few weeks later, I started seeing Helen posting these massive, grammatically incorrect, poor me rants on Facebook. She was fishing for sympathy, complaining about the struggles of the working actress and how nobody was giving her a chance. A mutual friend later told me that her shiny new resume wasn't getting a single bite. I can only imagine the faces of casting directors opening her email. She was blindly cold emailing production companies with a resume that proudly announced she was a manipulative, arrogant fraud who thought she was smarter than everyone else. Eventually, word got back to me that Helen was furious. She must have finally read it and realized she'd been punked. But here is the best part. Her massive ego wouldn't allow her to admit she'd been played. Doing so would mean admitting to the industry that she was too lazy to even proofread her own resume. It's been well over 12 years since I cut contact with her. Today, thanks to her unprofessional reputation that follows her like a shadow, the constant lying and crap-talking the competition, she's earned exactly what she deserves. The reputation of a lying grifter with 0 skills, 0 talent, and 0 jobs.
I would pay good money to see the look on a casting director's face reading that resume. It just proves that laziness always catches up to you. Now, for our final story, we are leaving Hollywood and heading out to the country. And let me tell you, when a city millionaire tries to bully an old-school cattle rancher, things get expensive very, very quickly.
My godfather is a tough, old-school guy who owns a small cattle ranch out in the countryside. About 25 years ago, he needed a reliable way to power a massive water pump for his cows. The nearest place to connect to the main electrical grid was on the complete opposite side of his ranch, about 1.5 miles away. So, out of his own pocket, he paid a small fortune to have utility poles installed all the way across his private property. Years later, a few neighbors who lived on the far side of the ranch asked if they could piggyback off his electrical line. Being a good neighbor, he agreed. They installed a few extra poles, the electric company set up their meters, and eventually, they even ran fiber optic internet cables on those same poles. Everything worked in perfect harmony for roughly 2 decades. Then, about 2 years ago, a massive real estate developer bought the land on the other side of the ranch. Their plan was to build a highly profitable luxury cottage development. Right from the start, these developers were incredibly arrogant. They came onto my godfather's property complaining about the smell of the animals and the noise of the heavy tractors. My godfather looked these guys in their expensive suits and said, "If you choose to build next to a working ranch, you have to accept that ranching will be happening here." But while planning the development, the city guys hit a massive roadblock. 2 miles of 20-year-old electrical cable was fine for a few farmhouses, but it was physically impossible to supply the heavy power needed for 15 luxury cottages. They approached the electric company to force an infrastructure upgrade. And that was when the lawyers discovered a tiny, inconvenient fact. The poles crossing my godfather's ranch were not public utilities. They were 100% privately owned by him. Instead of negotiating respectfully, the developers tried to bully him. They got their lawyers and the electric company together and handed my godfather an arrogant ultimatum. They told him he had exactly 2 choices. Number 1, allow the electric company to replace his wooden poles with massive concrete ones and sign over a permanent right-of-way across his private land for maintenance. Or, number 2, remove his poles completely. They thought they had him cornered. They thought no farmer would voluntarily cut off his own power. They were wrong. That very Sunday, my godfather woke up early, drank his coffee, got onto his heavy-duty fence-installing tractor, and drove down the line, physically ripping every single pole out of the ground. He removed the line completely, just like they legally offered. My godfather told me that he didn't really need the massive power grid anymore anyway. He simply bought some solar panels, installed a smaller, modern pumping system, and went about his day. The development company, however, was thrown into absolute chaos. Because my godfather legally removed his private property, the developers now have to install 3 or 4 miles of entirely new poles around the perimeter of the ranch just to bring electricity to their cottages, an expense that will cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars. Money they had already promised their buyers wasn't an issue. Oh, and to add a little cherry on top, my godfather jokingly mentioned that it was an unusually hot summer, so he recently brought in a whole herd of pigs because they require less water than cattle. And if you've ever been near a farm, you know that pigs smell infinitely worse than cows. Purely a coincidence, of course. Checkmate.
Sometimes the trash really does take itself out. Has something like this ever happened to you? Have you ever had a boss, a client, or a developer try to ruin your life, only for you to use their own rules against them? Share your story with us at rulebackfired@gmail.com, and we might feature it on the channel. Don't worry, your identity stays completely private. If you enjoyed these stories of sweet, sweet revenge, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment telling me which story was your favorite, and subscribe so you never miss another episode. Until next time, play smart and hold your ground.